Live again on the vertical video because I guess that's where you guys are all at, apparently, according to these YouTube gurus I keep watching. But I figure I go live and I talk about this Kendrick and Drake thing and kind of weigh my opinions on it. If you guys want to chime in and share your thoughts, that's fine too. But I want to talk about a few things, mostly around the fallout of the Super Bowl performance from Kendrick Lamar because I think arguably this might be one of the most debated and talked about Super Bowl performances of all time, mostly because of things that I already kind of knew was going to happen. And I think that the backlash in a lot of ways is warranted. Like, I don't think that a lot of people are mad unjustly, at least in terms of like Kendrick's choices that he made during the Super Bowl. And in particular, like, yes, there was a lot of deep messaging behind his performance. There's actually a great video from the homie Jalopy Bungus that's on his YouTube channel. I think it's on his TikTok too. Go check out his video breaking down the whole game over message at the end of Kendrick's performance. And if you watch that, or if you even know what I'm talking about with that, in terms of like the whole, trafficking behind it, and it's kind of attached to Diddy, and it gets pretty deep, right? And so after watching that video, it kind of got my mind working in a lot of different ways where it's like, okay, so what is the ultimate goal here by the industry, right? And when I say the industry, I'm talking like about the collective powers that be that have placed Kendrick Lamar in this position to basically eradicate Drake, and and they're giving the full support of Drake, or sorry, of the industry to support Drake, or sorry, support Kendrick. And so for me, it's like, all right, it gets kind of suspicious. Like when you start to like unpack things, and I think that even like with all this in mind, I think that Kendrick might even be like inadvertently being used in that sense. Because when you think about the industry historically, and you could talk to like a lot of people about this, like a lot of people. I'm talking about like you could talk to like anybody who's like mid tier in the industry who had to go through some questionable things to get in the position that they're in, or even top tier people if they want to talk to you about it. But what I'm saying is that like it gets pretty crazy when you think about how the industry is backing Kendrick Lamar. Not even the industry, it's like the entire like entertainment world is backing Kendrick Lamar, who is trying to basically call out Drake for being a PDF, right? Except when you actually know what goes down in the music industry and the entertainment industry and how like rampant this ish is when it comes down to this, like in terms of like trafficking, in terms of abuse, in terms of like even the Me Too movement and all that, like women being manipulated, people being manipulated, all kinds of stuff like that. It gets pretty deep in the grand scheme of things. So it's interesting that their the industry is getting so much behind Kendrick and putting Drake up as the villain who allegedly is like one of the ringmasters of all this stuff that's going on. And I think that's why I was really suspicious, just simply because of the fact that I feel like if all this was actually the case, or even if this is true, I think this is what will end up happening, right? Like, it's not like Drake is operating independently here in the sense that he literally just signed a $400 million contract, right? And so if he's over here signing a $400 million contract, and the industry is now against him to be considered to be like a PDF file, et cetera, and so forth. It's just a little weird because now Kendrick's being the person to like act as the hero to bring us all down, and I think it's highly suspicious. In my ultimate opinion, on this. This is where we're starting to go down conspiracy. I think that they're putting Drake up as the fall guy to act as a diversion to keep people from talking about the overall industry, which is why Drake is on this tirade trying to sue people because he wants to get his money out of it, et cetera, and so forth, which I think is idiotic. But that's a different conversation. I guess it's the same conversation, but we'll touch it later. But the point is that by getting him to be the fall guy, like almost like the Epstein of the situation, you're diverting the attention from everybody else. And especially when you look at everything else that's going on with like Diddy and Jay-Z and all these accusations coming up. It's like, oh, we got to find a way to distract people, and we're going to push this towards Drake. And the thing about Drake is that there's plenty of evidence to support this, right? It's not like these accusations are like wrong, because if you look at what he's been doing out there, he's been doing some PDFs type shit, right? In terms of this, look at the chick from Stranger Things and all that weird shit, right? Like, so there's plenty of stuff to like support the conspiracy being built around this man being brought down. But it's not necessarily a conspiracy. It's more along the lines of like, oh, well, someone's got to take the fall for this, right? And which is why you're seeing Diddy getting taken out too, right? So you're starting to see like all these people. You notice that they're all hip hop. It gets deeper. It gets deeper. You notice that it's all hip hop, right? So what Kendrick is trying to do, at least from his perspective, is that he's trying to save the culture. He's trying to save hip hop. He's trying to be like, yo, these people are destroying hip hop. The party is over, et cetera, so forth. And around the same time that he dropped the party is over or whatever, is around the same time that all these allegations started to drop around Diddy. And all that started going down. And then, all these guys are now on Drake for similar accusations, et cetera, so forth. And the thing about it is, though, is that even if Kendrick is operating independently, he's still being supported by the engine that is perpetuating the said accusations. Right? It gets crazy, right? When you really think about it from this. So when you see Kendrick at the Super Bowl, it's almost like he's fighting a battle like in a way that is not going to actually work. It's like almost like a 5D chess move, right? You put Kendrick up as the hero. Kendrick's now the hero. He's saving the day. He's exposing the industry, et cetera, and so forth. And now the industry's like, cool. Now we can let them take the fall. Let's let Diddy take the fall. Let's let Drake take the fall. Let's let Jay-Z take the fall. And then we can just, pit hip hop as, hip hop music is just like that, right? Hip hop is like this music that is so detrimental to, the growth of and the safety of people and the safety of women and the safety of children and all this stuff. They're going to start to attach all these PDF things to hip hop, right? And so when you think about it from that, you start to see all these quote unquote villains, which they probably are, depending on how the evidence ends up landing, in terms of Drake and Jay-Z and Diddy and all these people. They're considered to be the top tier, like literally like the tippity tier of hip hop, right? And you're looking at the tippity toppest tier hip hop getting called these accusations true or false, and you start to see the trickle down effect. So at some point, you need a quote unquote hero, Kendrick Lamar, to come up and basically represent the opposite of that, represent the consciousness, represent the hip hop, represent the realness, represent the culture, et cetera, so forth. And it's all set up by the industry to act as a distraction from the fact that they're the ones perpetuating all this. You see how crazy that is to me? Like, I don't think it'd be possible. I shouldn't say it's not possible, but it's highly likely that Drake wouldn't be in the position to do all these things if he wasn't being given $400 million contracts and, being pushed by the industry to be however he's meant to be, ladies' man, suave, smooth, all these things like that. Like, all these things are really perpetuated by marketing and things like that in order to get Drake in the position that he's in. So to me, it's all a distraction. That's basically what I'm trying to say, is that like, I love Kendrick Lamar. I thought his performance was great. And I think that his message was strong and there's a lot to dissect from it. But going back to my original thing about the Super Bowl is that the audience that he was trying to cater to in terms of like all these things that he was saying was not having it. Because now we're in a conservative Trump America now, bro. Like, things are a lot different now, vibe-wise. No longer are we Barack Obama in the streets change type of vibes anymore. We are now conservative, get your bread, save the babies vibe. You know what I'm saying? So the vibe has switched immensely over the last decades. Even when Kendrick Lamar dropped his album Good Kid, Mad City, the climate in which he dropped it in, hell, his first two albums was vastly different than the climate that he was in now. And I think he kind of knew this, which is why he went the way that he did with Samuel L. Jackson, heavily political, got black people turning into American flags, all kinds of stuff like that. Because it's like, fuck it, right? If he's gonna end up being the voice of the anti negative hip hop, I guess, or whatever we're calling this term, the PDFs and all this stuff, then he might as well lean into it, right? But like I said, is he a pawn in all this in the sense that the industry needs to put someone up as a champion? There always has to be someone that the industry has to root for. And at a point in time, it was Drake. But as the heat starts to come down more and more from, Diddy and all these allegations, and even the Me Too movement, even though that was a long time ago, you still are seeing the effects of that in the sense that like the industry is now being a little bit more crafty in how they're doing this because it still happens. You can talk, like I said, talk to any industry person who has tried to push themselves in LA trying to get it popping, especially females, and hear what they have to go through to get into some of these rooms or do it, et cetera, so forth. Hell, just look at Kanye and all the accusations that he's been getting over the last year or so. So it's like a big giant pyramid of crap that's happening right now. And right now you're seeing Drake and you're seeing Kendrick act as the two, I guess, antithesis of each other, where you have Drake and Diddy and Jay-Z and all these evil PDF files of hip hop that are the top tier hip hop that are controlling hip hop, and then you have Kendrick Lamar, the super duper artist who is saving the culture, et cetera, so forth. But he is backed by the industry. Like, it would be a different story if he wasn't winning 5 Grammys. It'd be a different story if he wasn't playing the Super Bowl, right? Like, the industry is giving him the opportunities to take down Drake, quote unquote, but the industry is the one that's perpetuating a lot of the situations that Drake is putting himself into. And so, like I said, it's a crazy, crafty game that we're seeing play out here where it's like, and I think, like I said, I think Kendrick's hip to it. That's why we saw what we saw during the Super Bowl. It's like you have two options here, right? You can either just keep doing what Kendrick does, which is just like basically like, okay, well, I'm going to like keep preaching the black man plight, et cetera, so forth, which he did in the Super Bowl performance. But like I said, there needs to be a villain, right? And Drake is that villain right now. Now, in terms of the accusations and all this stuff, it would be actually very interesting if all this did come to light to where this dude started getting accused of things. You notice that's like the one thing that's weird about this is that like I brought this up in a previous stream where I talked about like the Bill Cosby thing, right? How like Hannibal Buress was like, "Yo, Bill Cosby be dropping pills in girls' drinks," and everybody laughed, right? And then like 6 months later, they came after Bill Cosby like crazy, right? And that's kind of what happened with Diddy when Cassie came out and was like, "Yo, Diddy is terrible," and then that video dropped, which was damning evidence. I mean, you can't really avoid some evidence like that. That the industry started to collapse on him. Now this dude's sitting in jail. I think his trial's in March. And then you look at Drake, though. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that yes, he may be involved in some nefarious things, right? When you look at like the concert footage, which I'm sure people might refute, the 17-year-old girl, his relationship with Millie Bobby Brown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you never seen the hammer come down where it's like, oh, we're going to file an investigation. Now, part of this, too, is the fact that Drake's Canadian. Drake's from Canada, right? So it's like that plays a big role in like the whole narrative that I guess Kendrick's trying to paint here, where it's like, oh, well, like he's not even from America. But when it comes to the trafficking, when it comes to like this whole, bringing in women and having them do nefarious things, prostitution, all these things, it's worldwide, bro. So it doesn't actually really matter if he's from Canada or not. And when you hear rappers rap about certain things in their music, it's one of those things where it's like, bro, how can you deny some of these accusations that are coming after you when there's so much visual evidence? There's so many women who were like, oh yeah, I was like 18, 19 when he came after me. Like all this stuff like that's like, bro, like it's not hard to live a life of avoiding that type of lifestyle if you choose to, even if you're rich. Now, yeah, you might get hit fame and you might get drunk in the club and some things might happen, whoop, whoop, whoop. But there's plenty of artists who have never done that before, right? So it's not like it's something where it's like, oh, I'm going to choose to make these decisions to be with these type of people, kids or teenagers, et cetera, so forth, because of whatever, right? It's a personal preference that literally happens that comes down. It might be psychological, it might be mental, whatever. But the discussion is that Drake has been accused of this, and it probably has happened. Now, when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, there's a little bit of irony there because some of the people in his circle have also nefarious things, particularly Dr. Dre. Now, Dr. Dre has been around for a very long time, and to say that he's repented with the D Barnes situation, for example, who knows? We'll have to have a conversation. But in terms of history of abusing women, history of uh, not being faithful to your partner, things like that. There's a lot of history around Kendrick's circle as well. But the elephant in the room of this is that this is kind of like hip hop in general. There's like a whole genre of hip hop that's like dedicated to just like shitting on your baby mama, right? There's a whole dedicated genre of hip hop dedicated to like cheating on your women and doing that. Like these things are so commonplace in hip hop, and Kendrick hasn't escaped that. He admitted this on his album though, showing that there is growth. Mr. Morale has him talking about, oh yeah, I did cheat on my wife. You know what I'm saying? I was doing this, I was doing that. I did have some problems. Like he's very open about that as an artist, which is extremely rare in the hip hop community. And you've seen a shift since then. I mean, look at Tyler Creator's last album. You see the impact of that. And so when you look at Drake, trying to figure out what Drake should be doing at this point, right? Like Drake literally got dissed on the largest stage in the history of any artist. I think the only stage that you can play or be a part of, which is not even like publicly accessible in the same way, is like the World Cup. Because I think what, like 100 million, 150 million people, I think 133 million people watched this particular Super Bowl, which is almost a record, like one of the most watched Super Bowls of all time. But then you have the World Cup. The World Cup is watched by 400 million people, but it's over a course of like a month. But if you play a World Cup stage, you're being exposed to a fuck ton of people. But I digress. I went on a tangent there. The point is that being dissed on one of the largest stages you could possibly be dissed on, like what should someone do? And honestly, like what I would like to hear from Drake is, or see from Drake, is growth. Like I would love to see Drake grow from this, where it's like maybe I should talk more about the world. Maybe I should put more influence into my community. Maybe I should try to help the youth. And I know that like when it comes to like charitable donations, a lot of artists do this shit privately. Like they like donate here and there, et cetera, so forth. But you never really hear Drake doing things like that. And I absolutely might be wrong. Someone can fact check me on this. But I feel like you never heard of Drake being like, "Oh yeah, I gave 100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club. I opened up a charity food drive in my community." You don't hear Drake doing that. You just don't. You hear him making a fuck ton of money. Like you said, he signed a $400 million contract, but you're not hearing him be like, "Well, I'm gonna build a neighborhood in one of the communities of Toronto or something like that." You don't hear him doing stuff like that. So I think that's actually what I would do if I were Drake, is that I would actually maybe switch it up a little bit, and I would talk about like maybe not so much Toronto, so much just like worldly problems when it comes to like how to help a band like him get in the position that he got, like other people who were like him, right? Now Drake obviously had a little bit of privilege in his life, whatever, right? And however you want to see that is however you want to see that. But the thing about that though is that like even though you're in a position of privilege, it still gives you the opportunity to give back and do others. I'm not saying that he should just go full philanthropist and be like, start like a fucking orphanage or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that like this is an opportunity for Drake to actually kind of listen to Kendrick a little bit and turn the tides. And instead, what he's doing is that once again he's making it about the money, which I think is missing the message. Because when you think about a lawsuit, for example, like which is what Drake has been doing, he's been suing motherfuckers left and right, just shooting off the lawsuit gun, pow 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 pow. What's the ultimate goal of a lawsuit? Financial compensation, right? So even if Drake wins all the lawsuits, he just gets a bunch more money, right? Maybe some songs get pulled, right? But like, what's the ultimate impact that you're saying? Now, it could expose some things in the industry. Now, if like the whole bot thing, which got dismissed, by the way, if that actually went through and they did some discovery and they found like some interesting things about how these bots work and et cetera, so forth, that could actually help the industry, then that would be cool. But that's not going to happen, right? The only thing that really benefits from all this, the big benefit is that Drake gets more money, which honestly, I don't give a fuck how much money Drake has at this point. Do you? Do you care how much money Drake signed a $400 million contract, dog. He'll probably be a billionaire by the time he's 40. I don't know how Drake old. I think Drake is 35 years old. He'll be a billionaire by the time he's 40 at this rate. And so it's one of those things where it's like, cool. I mean, like I said, it'd be great if you found a way to give back to the community, find a way to like put the money back into something to where people can really benefit from that. And like I said, he might already be doing that. Someone might fact check me right now and be like, well, Drake is actually doing, he donates $1 million a year to the whoop whoop whoop. He might be doing that. But I think in his next project, like his next solo project, because he's dropping a project here later this week with P&D, on his next project, he should definitely find a way to like be a little bit more conscious. I would love to hear like some introspective, like thoughtful, society-driven music from Drake. Now, I'm not saying his whole album needs to be like that. I'm not saying this dude needs to turn into Common. Ironically enough, have somebody else he's beef with. I'm not saying he's to go full Common. But what I'm saying is that it'd be cool if he was like talking about like something that speaks to the youth that feel inspired by him, right? Like these kids in Toronto who want to be the next Drake or whoever, right? Like just sprinkle a little bit of that into the music, just a little bit of that into the next shit, and give us something that makes us be like, damn, that's the only way he's gonna actually beat the numbers that he's ever like. I don't think at this point that Drake's ever gonna do better than God's plan in terms of numbers. I don't think that's ever happening. And mostly that's because of the fact that God's plan, first of all, that was a series of random events that put that together to make that work. But um, even with God's plan, that's actually probably the most charitable and altruistic that he's ever been in terms of like the video where he was going around giving people money and all that stuff. It felt a little gimmicky, but when you think about it, that also wound up being his most successful song of all time of his career because of like the inspirational nature of the song, right? God's plan, like living on and doing your best thing based on God's plan. The video where he was giving out stuff, you know what I'm saying? The lyrics are somewhat inspirational, probably some of the most inspirational music that Drake's ever done, right? So it's like he should try to go back to that formula, like understanding that like music has powerful effects on people in terms of inspiring people and touching people in ways that are unexpected. And his last like 5 albums have been on some like fuck shit where it's like, yo, I'm out here fucking bitches and I'm out here, yo, I'm Drake, look how rich I am. And it's like, dude, I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? If you look at his older stuff, like Take Care, like a song like Headlines, for example. They know that the real is on the rise. All the other guys didn't even give him a chance. That's kind of inspirational, right? That's a little bit more inspirational than like the recent shit where he's talking about I'm bigger than Super Bowl. Look at the money, you know what I'm saying? Like find a way to like get me inspired and get me hyped to like be a better person and be a better man. Especially with you being a father with a kid, maybe two, maybe seven, who the fuck knows? But especially with a kid, with Adonis, like you need to find a way to like empower the youth, bro, because Adonis is taking your slot 20, 30 years from now. Look at what Beyonce did with her kid. Now, I'm not saying that you should be parading your kid all over the tours and doing this and that, especially at their age, a little young right now. Let them be kids. But what I'm saying is that I'm sure at some point in time there was a conversation between Beyonce and Blue and Jay-Z where it's like, what do you want to do, Blue? What do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? You want to be a doctor? Do you want to, you can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm a multi-billionaire. So what do you want to do? Right? And so and Blue was probably like, I want to be like my mom. That's kind of what they had felt like that conversation was. And then, Beyonce's like, bet, if you want to be like mommy, you got to come do mommy shit. So I'm going to take you on tour with me. You're going to dance next to me for these next 5 tours, and then we're going to go around the world. And so you see that, right? You start to see like the cultivation of that. And Blue's going to end up being a beast by the time she's like decides to drop her own music. Even with Northwest, right? Like Northwest, you got North. She already has more music than a lot of artists I know locally. She just dropped a song on whose album was she on? She was on I forgot who it was. I gotta look it up. I got figured it out. But the point is that Drake has the opportunity right now to really pivot and to turn into somebody who is actually very inspirational and very motivational. Grow. I think that's the ultimate message that Kendrick is trying to give Drake. Because I don't think that when people say that Kendrick hates Drake, that it's in a way that's like, I want to see Drake's demise. Like, if something were to happen to Drake right now, to where Drake got popped or something like that, I don't think Kendrick would feel good about that, right? I think that he would be like, well, damn, that sucks. That's sad. Because they have a history, right? They go back. Like, not like he's wishing death upon Drake. I don't think that's the case. But what he is doing is like, he's like, bro, you need to change it up because you want some bullshit. And that bullshit is affecting the youth. And you have kids, and you have a family, and you have all this legacy, and you have opportunity to make change. So get off the bullshit. Now, he's also not saying turn into me, because that would be weird if Drake just suddenly became full on Kendrick Lamar, started doing all kinds of weird shit with the prison marches and shit. Like, I don't think that that's what Kendrick is saying. But as I quote my favorite hero's uncle, with great power comes great responsibility. And Drake has great power. He's arguably one of the most, if not the most influential artists of like the last decade and a half. In terms of like artists that he's put on, his music impacting. I think the only artist who's had more impact than Drake is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is usually literally being like hopping on Instagram, being like, vote for Kamala Harris, right? Like, she's doing something different. Like, she's using her voice in a way that's connecting with all of her audience and being like, well, yeah, maybe I should vote for Kamala Harris because fucking Taylor Swift said so. Drake's not doing that shit. Drake's like, no, I'm gonna go to fucking Vegas and I'm gonna pop bottles, or I'm gonna go do whatever, right? And it comes off a little abusive of the power that you have in the state that you're in, doing these things, especially not even being from America. Like, you're over here just sucking up all America's resources. And that's what Kendrick alluded to on Not Like Us, where he was like, yeah, you come to ATL and you steal the culture. You go over here, you hit up Little Baby, you hit up all these different rappers, and you absorb their culture like some type of fucking perfect cell monster, or like a Kirby or something like that. And when you put all that shit together, it's like, I think that Drake really could find a way to like redeem himself in the long run, but he has to look within a little bit and be like, well, how do I want my legacy to be known as? Right. And with that said, it's going to be a hard fight because don't know like a lot of artists who have recovered from scathing beefs, particularly in hip hop, where it's like you get completely cooked by somebody, especially on this level. I'm saying, like, winning 5 Grammys and fucking playing the Super Bowl. I don't know anybody who's been cooked on this level who's been able to recover, right? And so, but I think out of anybody else in the entire world, artist wise, I think Drake could. I think Drake could recover just fine. And I think we will see. But I think a lot of it comes down to how he responds. If he continues to be petty and do dumb shit, like I'm gonna wear a bullet hole shirt with smoke coming out of it, it's goofy shit, bro. It's goofy, and it doesn't hit the way that you think it does, because it makes it seem like you're victimizing yourself a little bit. And yeah, at this point, I guess you are a victim, so I guess it's not like wrong to say that. But when you really think about it that way, it's like I guess at some point in time, a victim has to fight back, right? You can't just sit there and keep getting kicked down, et cetera, so forth. You know, the victim mentality, et cetera, so forth. You have to stand up and be like, yo, I'm gonna save my victimhood and I'm gonna stand up for myself and be a man, et cetera, so forth. So I think with Drake, there's a lot of that too, where it's like, I need to go ahead and protect my manhood. But this dude, and Purple Minded said in the comments, this dude has survived pictures of blackface being put out. This dude has survived some shit, and now he's being called PDF and going after minors and shit like that on fucking televised TV and Super Bowls and shit like that. Like, I don't know, man. It's gonna be a tough fight for this man. But I don't think this is done. Because of the fact that it seems that Drake is really the petty type, I expect to hear some more responses from him. He shouldn't at this point. Mostly because it's like I definitely like the game over sign at the end of the video at the end of the Super Bowl performance was it's game over, dude. Like you can't sit here and be like drop a diss track tomorrow or say some petty shit on stage. Although he will probably continue to do that for the rest of his career because he's not learning the lesson. And the lesson is that sometimes you just need to shut the F up and just put your head down and do something that's beautiful, right? And that's something that's kind of like the elephant in the room discussion when it comes to like the music quality of these artists. I like Drake, don't get me wrong. But as an artist myself, and the reason why I do, well, one of the big reasons why I do art is because one, I want to challenge myself to be able to tell stories in interesting ways. Two, I want to connect with people who resonate with those stories. And three, I want to create something fucking beautiful that fucking lasts the test of time. And that last one in particular is where Drake has been slipping up. When you look at his last several projects, they're not hitting me in ways where I'm like, man, this music is beautiful. This music is fantastic. This is something that you could tell that the love and the energy was put into the studio, and like you could feel the vibes, you could feel the emotion in the writing, you could feel all that. And I'm not saying that every song needs to be that from that, but it's like his earlier music had those vibes to it, all the way up to Nothing Was the Same. Maybe around Views, you start to kind of feel a shift where it almost felt like kind of cookie cutter in terms of the music that he was putting out, all the way up to this point where his sound doesn't have the energy that you expect it to have when it comes to being an artist. Now, Kendrick on the other side, his last album, Mr. Morale, is a whole ass therapy session where this man is pouring his heart out for however many tracks that album is. And it's felt deeply or enjoyed the songs or not, et cetera, so forth. That doesn't take away the fact that the effort and the energy that's put into it was beautiful. And you could feel that. And that's the true essence of being an artist. And that's the true essence of why we do this shit. Is to being able to tell your story in a unique, beautiful, compelling, resonating way. And as I said earlier, Drake has not done that for me in particular in a very long time. And I think that's what it comes down to is like, go back to the reasons why you were making music to begin with. Because it's a meme that goes around on Instagram all the time where it talks about, would you fucking do this shit if you weren't being paid for it? A lot of us already are, or not making a lot of money from this shit. We're making 0.003 cents a stream. We're not making billions of dollars. I'm not thinking about where I'm buying my next house off of the sales of my next album, right? I'm just making music because I believe that I like the music that I fucking make, and I think that it needs to be heard, and I think it's beautiful, and I want to share it with the world. And when you put your those type of intentions into the music, it can be felt, it can be understood. Doesn't mean it's going to be wildly successful because success is a whole different metric when it comes to music. It's not even necessarily about like how good the song is. It's mostly about how many people have listened to said song, how many people have been exposed to said song, how many times has said song been played on the radio. All these stupid ass factors that uh, factor into success. Like even with the song "Not Like Us," like don't get me wrong, I might be wrong, I might be crazy for saying this, but come here. the song is just fine. Like, it's not a great song. Like, it's not like a 10 out of 10. And people will argue with me all day. I've actually argued with people with Facebook be on day all day. But if you look at Kendrick's catalog of music and the songs that he has put together over the course of his career, particularly songs in Good Kid, Mad City, you cannot tell me that Not Like Us is better than any of those songs that he's put out. And that's just straight up facts. Like, yeah, it did what it did. It's popular, it's catchy, it has a cool beat, and et cetera, and so forth. And there's a weird story behind it. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is that, like, because it had all these other factors besides the actual song itself, that's why it's successful. Like, if he put that song out, like the same exact song, without it being about Drake and not during the beef, same beat, maybe even the same lyrics, just take out the Drake disses and put something else on it, the song wouldn't have done nearly as well. I can almost guarantee that. Like, if that song was like the lead single for GNX, it would have done numbers, but it wouldn't be the massive, crazy, 5-time Grammy winning Super Bowl performance viral song that it is. That's just facts. It's the story behind it. It's the connection behind it that makes it is what it is. And that's how I feel about Drake. We're like, Drake's not putting anything behind his music. Yeah, he with For the Dogs, he did have his son draw the album cover, but even that theme was lost in the music. Like, your son should have hosted that album. That would have been kind of cool, right? If he was just like on every other song, like being like, yeah, man, that'd been kind of cool. But he didn't do that. He kind of just exploited his son a little bit and had him draw the album cover, and then it was like, get the fuck out of here. Threw him in a couple of videos, but it was like, get the fuck out of here, right? And so once again, it goes back to the whole nature of like Drake just kind of being like a succubus and taking shit, even from his own son. I digress. I think this is a good place to stop. I've been fucking rambling for fucking 36 minutes. So I'll be back though with other videos. I actually have more thoughts on this on my YouTube channel, where I talk about Drake and what Drake should probably do. And I just put out a video about Will Smith that I just dropped today, talking about fucking Will Smith's crazy ass and all this rapping he's been doing and no one gives a fuck about. Anyways, appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Peace out.